Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, if you're new to the Win with Dice podcast, it's a podcast all about tabletop RPGs, running them and playing them. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby. So, we usually just talk about our games that we're running and the games that we're playing in, and all the cool, awesome GMs and creators out there that we get to, experience their hobby and enjoy. So yeah, and hopefully it shows you that jumping into the other side of the GM screen, or even just picking up the hobby in general, is something for you.
Exactly. You like to demystify the other side of the GM screen for anybody who's considering it and hasn't made that leap yet. Now this week we did want to talk a bit more about what's going on currently with D&D and Wizards of the Coast and the OGL, which is a phrase that if you've been keeping track of D&D social media or any of the topics on there, you might have heard a few times. I've been doing some reading, some article reading, some video watching, and I made some notes, and I just wanted to go over what that situation actually is and try not to speculate too much and try not to be too fear-mongery, but I do want to say, what people are concerned about and why people seem so worried about this, and how you how our Pathfinder fans out there might be affected.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into all that fun stuff, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week.
Yes, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week, brought to you by Ramon. All right, we're still doing it, folks. We're here. I'm excited. I made notes, even though it was a one line. I've made a note. People tell you, people say people can't change. You know what I mean? But you show them. But actually, I'm going to talk about. The topic. I'm going to also make an example in Lancer, the most favoritist game on this channel, apparently. Also, I think they also have some legal information that you can use to make Lancer supplements, and it's totally free. Just don't be a dickhead.
Yeah, basically. I mean the Lancer stuff is pretty straightforward compared to everything. Yeah, compared to D&D at least.
Yeah, I think I saw Tom list 3 rules. It was 1, don't reprint the core rulebook. 2, don't be a dickhead. And 3, follow the first 2 rules.
Something like that.
it was crazy. So yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about maps. Basically, when you're doing your tabletop RPG has a combat system that is gridded. I mean, awesome. That's great. The size of the maps and actual squares that your players have to traverse is actually really, really important. Actually, it could be the difference between you having a really intense skirmish or everyone taking pot shots from the back of the map, right? And to consider what that the size of the map that you should use, I think you should also consider the amount of movement you get per turn, right? And whether or not there's any movement restrictions like difficult terrain, or maybe you can't move diagonally in Icon, which is the worst. It is. I never realized how moving diagonally is so awesome until you couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, I know, that makes that game really cool because some classes are able to move diagonal and then they just become so much faster, and they actually just feel instead of their movement is so much higher than yours, it's just they just get to move in ways that you can't. Which is a cool way to translate that into game mechanics. But anyway, so large maps tend to have it's hard. Large maps with open spaces tend to be shooting galleries and basically kind of favor the sniper or long range build, versus small dense maps really focus, I would say, really focus more onto melee characters, and they're able to get up into range and attack stuff. So think about that when you're building your maps for your encounters, and which thing that you want to challenge your players with, because if your party or group of players or your Lancer Corps is built with all melee dudes, if you want to pose a challenge to them, put them in an open field and tell them to put a bunch of snipers at the back of the map and be good luck, right?
Yeah.
You can arrange the map to not don't tailor the you can tailor the map to the player's party, or tailor the map to a specific person, so they get a time to shine, versus and the other way around. It really kind of changes up the dynamic, as well as the density of crap on the map really matters. I find that newer GMs to systems never put enough stuff on the map, line of sight blocking terrain, cover terrain, traps and area hazards, that kind of stuff. It's better to jam pack the battlefield with a bunch of crap than to have an open battlefield where people just kind of meet in the middle. And also, bonus tip, you can have the enemies not start in the other end of the map. You could have the enemies start right in front of the players. There's no rule saying that you can't do that. And honestly, the first time you do it to your players, they're going to be like, oh my god. Right? Start them right next to the dragon. You know, like it's bigger than them. It can do what it wants.
Yeah, I mean, it knows if it knows where they are and it wants to win, it'll go in front of them when it can.
Yeah, don't play fair. This is a game of life and death.
I don't know if don't play fair is the best way to put
don't cheat,
that is true.
but also use all the advantages that you have at your disposal. You know, like
Fair enough.
It's only you're one GM, and there's 4 players. You know what I mean? You might have the narrative flex, but you know there's 4 brains on the other side, right? Like they can figure it out. They'll beat you up, man. Don't let them bully you. You teach them what it's. You teach them, all right. There you go, folks. That's my GM tip of the week. Don't get bullied by your players.
Bully them back.
Put the fear of the GM in them. See, it's so easy to be a GM, guys. Just bully your players.
Just crave confrontation.
Yeah. No, don't do that.
Crave fair confrontation.
Yes, quote unquote fair. You know what I mean? Quote.
Okay, let's get into this action. Let's get into the episode. So if you've been keeping up with news around the TTRPG space, you may have heard. I mean, you've probably already heard that there's a new version of D&D on the horizon. It's been referred to as 1 D&D. It hasn't been referred to as 6th edition, at least unofficially, but that largely seems to be what the case is, as indicated by the announcement video. And additionally, it'll come with like its own, digital play spaces and things like that. Now, something people were concerned about was that there was no OGL originally released or announced for 1 D&D when that was first on the horizon. And what the OGL is the open game license is what allows people to publish things that are compatible with D&D. Compatible with 5e is something you'll see on a lot of different products. They don't say some of them don't say Dungeons and Dragons specifically, but they are made to be compatible with it, and they are able to use things that are from it because of this open game license. Now, the license that people have been using for the past, since 2000 basically, is OGL 1.0a, which is a fairly straightforward document. I'll try to have links to sources and everything below, and I'll have a link to that as well. It doesn't take too long to read through, maybe just a few minutes. But essentially, what it would allow people to do is they're allowed to use the basic concepts of D&D that are covered by the the system reference document. And the system reference document refers to the what it calls open game content, and that's basically like the D&D specific stuff, like the rules, the classes, the feats, the spells. Not usually setting stuff. You can't really use that the same way. Mm-hmm. But things that are covered under that, under that space.
Right.
So more recently, again, since people were worried that there wasn't going to be an OGL for, the newest version of D&D, and they made a post on D&D Beyond that sort of stated that there was going to be one. It was just going to be, updated to compensate for some things that have changed since the year 2000, including things such as NFTs and stuff like that. They don't want people, exploiting their IP to make NFTs with.
Yeah, nobody wants NFTs.
Exactly.
Straight up. It was a bad idea. It's still a bad idea.
Pretty much. But some things they said in that announcement were that it sort of made the open game license a bit less open in a way, because then you had to inform them of the thing that you were making. You also had to report your revenue. If you made more than $50,000 in a year, you would have to report that to them annually, which was not part of the original agreement. Mm-hmm. So that was something that made people a bit iffy, a bit worried, because how do people register for this sort of thing? And considering how much D&D content there is out there, how efficient is this registration going to be for smaller content creators and things like that?
Yeah. And like, I think that it's a little wild that I think this is their monetization strategy. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was a couple of weeks ago we caught a little wind of this, right? There's leaks of like I believe it was the as shareholders meeting.
Yeah.
And their business strategy going into 2023 or going forward is like their monetization. This is exactly what actually I thought was going to happen. So
yeah, that was something they were talking about, because it seemed more like purchaser focused. Like they want like players to be like they want players in their digital space, and they were mentioning the kind of recurring spending you see in video games. And I thought that was going to be the main thing, but it seems there's more.
Yes, more.
So what has changed here essentially is that what is coming up now is OGL 1.1, and this is the change to the open gaming license. This has several different changes that people are very worried about, very concerned about, and they might have some impact on people who publish content, especially digital content. Because they, again, in their article they first posted on D&D Beyond, they stated that OGL 1.1, it's for material created for use in tabletop RPGs, which is like printed stuff or static electronic files, so like PDFs and like book files, things like that. Right. But things like videos and video games, usually those would fall under like fan content. Which is something I'll talk about as we get into the actual meat of this. But there were several changes coming in OGL 1.1 that people are nervous about, as recorded in an article on Gizmodo by Linda Codega. And what they wrote in the article is based on a leaked version of OGL 1.1. And again, like this is a leak in a way. But some of it was confirmed by an outside source, which I'll get into as we get to that point. So one of the things it does is, again, it helps prevent the creation of NFTs or like discriminatory material, which is a good thing. To state that specifically, I'm in favor of that part at least. It does additionally try to remove the authorization of like OGL 1.0. The one that people have been using, or 1.0A, which is the one that people have been using. But however, 1.0A does specifically state that you can use any authorized version of this license to copy, modify, distribute any material, any open game content that is originally distributed under any version of the license. But then 1.1 is going to come along and say, yeah, but 1.0 is no longer authorized, which is going to throw off a few things, because there's definitely different publishers that use 1.0A, such as Paizo, because of their basis in D&D 3rd edition. So essentially what the issue is that further use of the OGL by licensed publishers might no longer be valid. So the open game content might no longer be able to use, and those are the basis of some certain things, like, some holdovers of stuff, like Magic Missile is a bit of a holdover from D&D. The 3 different ability scores in Pathfinder, a holdover from D&D, which could change, they might not change. That's more of a debatable thing. I think I have some notes about that further down.
And I think there's some monsters too, right? Like the Gelatinous Cube and probably like an owlbear or something like that. Yeah, owlbears are another one that are like, they might have to change the name of those to, I don't know, bear owls. Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, bear owls? Sick. I would love it if they just changed the animal to be like a bear head with like an owl's body.
That's even more terrifying.
I know. Hey, Paizo's holding themselves back. I think that's what it is. Pandering to the D&D audience. We should just make weird shit.
Not enough bear owls.
Not enough bear owls.
With further use of the original OGL no longer being valid, it would no longer apply to publishers using it. And one of the things that stood out to me in regards to this leaked document, and I have it quoted here, was that the OGL was intended to allow the community to help grow D&D and expand it creatively, which is a good thing. But the quote also goes on to say it wasn't intended to subsidize major competitors. and it wasn't intended to fund competitors, and it wasn't intended to allow people to make D&D apps, videos, or anything other than printed materials, which on one hand makes sense because this was made in the year 2000, so things like apps and videos on social media, those weren't so much a thing. But what stands out to me is the concept of it wasn't intended to subsidize major competitors, because if you look at the tabletop RPG space, one of the major competitors to D&D is Pathfinder. Pathfinder did pass D&D in sales for a period of time during 4th edition. So I can see someone at Hasbro looking at that and saying, hey, they're using our stuff, and they surpassed us at some point in time, and now that we're in a period where D&D is very much on the rise, it's very it's like ever since like the mid 2010s at least, it's been on the rise. I can see someone saying like, hey, what about these guys who are lifting in the ship with us, right?
But here's the thing, right? Because they include like apps and videos, right? It's like the reason that D&D got popular was because of all the online free content available, right? I would say, again, Matt Mercer and crew like popularized D&D, period. Like without them, the game would never be as big as it is right now. I still, to this day, people keep referencing that damn campaign that Matt Mercer read.
Hell, I do it.
As like, yeah, Calvin does it all the time, and shit, we've been playing D&D before Matt Mercer.
Remember when they were all cows?
So, I think that's like, again, one of those things where it's like, I don't know, corporations be corping, man.
Indeed.
Yeah, but I do understand also that, a product that is loosely based, I wouldn't say like maybe not loosely, but like there are like several overlapping elements from Pathfinder, and they did take a big chunk of from D&D, and Pathfinder took a big chunk of market share, right? Because they produced D&D 4E, and at the time it wasn't something that the people wanted, right? They honestly didn't want it. So the market share that honestly they lost me, right? As a consumer, like I haven't played D&D ever since 3.5, when we jumped from 3.5 to Pathfinder. I've not since played that game, so I'm a part of that group of people,
right? So
and that's like the bottom line, right? Like I've spent like a good chunk of money on Pathfinder stuff that like if Pathfinder didn't exist, I probably would have gone to D&D because I was the only option. But the problem I have with this is that now it's like, it's almost like they're trying to like monopolize role-playing games.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think, in good faith of the whole genre of this thing that we're all doing together, is a little bit like, corporates be corping to me, and it's not in favor of anybody except for them. And I still don't think I'm going to support D&D.
Yeah, understand. Like that is what it feels like. Like I don't want to speculate too much, but you are not wrong on how it seems like they're trying to muscle into the space, or not even muscle into, but just like cut other people off at the legs, right?
Yeah, and as well as that, like I don't think it really inspires people to try and make content for the game anymore, right?
Yeah.
Everything will just be like in-house, because like D&D is popular, but if I'm like a creator that really wants to make, or if I'm like a company that really wants to make some revenue, like, I mean, Calvin did a lot of research. We're not even that far into it.
No, there's definitely a couple more things that are large reasons why third-party content creators are very nervous.
Yeah, right. It's like, and you're trying to run a company to make some significant money so you can continue being a company. It doesn't like help that, like, and I don't know. Okay.
Well,
Calvin,
speaking of significant money.
Yeah, let's continue.
So again, I will have the article linked below. I didn't write down every single thing from it because I did want people to go there and see it for themselves. So there is some stuff on how they split between like commercial and non-commercial content, and how they break down the commercial content in different tiers based on their revenue. And that's just basically from like 50,000 under 50,000 to 750,000 in a year, and then over 750,000. And again, this is while this is leaked material, this does partially align with what we saw in the D&D Beyond post, where they were saying that everything over 50,000 has to be reported to them. But once you get over 750,000, qualifying revenue, and revenue is basically, for people who don't know, although I feel like everyone does, but if you don't, revenue is basically the money you make from something before your expenses. It's not the same as your profit, because you're not factoring in like what it costs to make or produce or whatever else, this sort of thing. You're not factoring the costs of your business. This is like this is just the money you've taken in. And if your revenue is over 750,000 in a calendar year, it comes with a royalty fee of 25%. But that is everything over the 750,000. So if you make 750,000 at $1, you pay 25 cents basically.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's only a few companies, right, that kind of fit into that criteria, I guess.
Yeah, so it would mostly affect the larger publishers that are still using OGL 1.0a, like Paizo, Green Ronin, Kobold Press, EN Publishing, or N Publishing, all those. They do say, again, that it only affects a small number of people, but that does include publishers who have to pay people, right? It's not like it's just one single person who made a thing and it went super well and they just have to pay like their own money on that. It's a company that also has to consider that like they have to pay their freelancers or writers or artists or layout designers and things like that.
Yeah, right. Like, I think that this is wild because like it just feels really monopoly.
Indeed.
Or like it is, or like it doesn't feel like it just kind of blatantly is, right? If you know are, or like even if someone did like a crazy big Kickstarter, right? Like Matt Koval, right? Like all of his stuff is through Kickstarter. I think he's up to like a couple $1 million on his newest one with his book. Like his book is blatantly just like a monster book, right? To compete with the monster manuals that D&D keeps putting out.
Yeah.
And even though his design is like pretty unique, he's gonna have to pay 25% on top of like all of that, right? Which is like a significant chunk because, you know, he pays people well.
Yeah,
right?
you have to factor that in. I had done the math on it as well, on just like if a Kickstarter made $1 million, but specifically for Kickstarter, and this goes into the thing I had mentioned before with some outside information. Specifically for Kickstarter, that royalty fee is 20% on everything over 750,000. And they had mentioned that Kickstarter was sort of their preferred platform. And what happened after this article came out was that on Twitter, a guy by the name of John Ritter, who was the director of games at Kickstarter, he mentioned that they had a discussion with WotC to negotiate down to the 20% from the original 25%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think Kickstarter gets a lot of revenue from, you know, kickstarting third-party publishing D&D content.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of third-party D&D content that is on Kickstarter is ludicrous. So
yeah, which now, like, if people want to have a crowdfunding for D&D based content, Kickstarter is the place they're gonna go, because they save 5% on that royalty. But I mean, this is a benefit for Kickstarter as well, because where else are you gonna go? If you go somewhere else, you gotta pay 5% more.
I think it's wild because like it doesn't make any sense to me because honestly, like D&D didn't have to do anything.
No.
The problem is like people just need to have like the base rules, right? They still need them, right? If you just had like a platform with the base rules and had like, yeah, do you want to make third-party content for our D&D platform that like you could do? Like, I don't know. I just think it's wild. It's so wild to me because, again, like Lancer's pretty small, right, in comparison. But the amount of things that you get for free in Lancer is ridiculous. And somehow I still bought the book twice. That's
I mean, like you said,
too.
corpos be corpin'. I mean, they do. I did make a note much later at the bottom of my notes that WotC brought in $1 billion in 2021, but only like 100 to 150 million of that was D&D specifically, and that sounds like a lot of money. But when you consider Hasbro had a profit of like, I think it was 6 point something billion dollars, they're gonna look at their competition in that space and say, hey, they're using our thing. Why aren't they giving us more money? I feel like 25% is a kind of ridiculously large number. I wouldn't be surprised if they came back with a similar thing but a smaller number, just said like, hey, we listen to the fans.
Yeah, well, I think that, like, even if they listen to the fans, the fact that they're taking any amount of money is
when they weren't before.
When they weren't before, it's enough for me to be like, just make better content. You know, it doesn't. I don't know. I find that there's like a line between like, if D&D made really good content, I would go do it, right? But like, they haven't done anything better than anyone else that I've already currently been with, right? And this is definitely not going to, in my opinion, make people want to play D&D. Like, I'm sure there's a percentage of people like me who are just like, why? Right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, the further support, like, and to me, it's like, I don't think you have to like stop playing D&D because you already bought all the books and all that stuff, right? But to me, it's like, going forward in the future, would this 25% bring in enough revenue to the point where like it outweighs the amount of people who are just gonna boycott your company and your game system, anything new that you do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like the larger people, like that's one of the things. Like the more popular people, like if someone had a Kickstarter that got over $1 million, they would owe WotC $50,000. Like they have to factor that into their budgeting. That's just $50,000 that is gone.
Yeah, and that
from
would just
what
raise
they would
the
need
price.
to like.
Yeah, and
yeah, that like what they need for publishing or distribution. Yeah.
Right. That'll raise the final. That will actually raise the final price of the product, because you know that 50,000 could have gone into warehousing or production runs or paying like artists a good amount of like in-house artists with good amount of money. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that you know it could have gone to, but instead of just going to their pocket, it's gonna go to WotC's product because like I don't know pocket because like I don't know they want to make movies.
Yeah. And another thing that people are very worried about, so even people who are coming in under that 750K or under that 50K, what they are very worried about is that the so 1.0A, the original OGL, it granted a perpetual worldwide royalty-free non-exclusive license to use the SRD. And if there was a breach of the agreements in the document, you would have like a 30-day period before termination of the document. But that was like a breach of what was specifically within the open game license. And that's just like the requirements of like making sure you put the license in there, identifying what work is from open game content, which is again the D&D content, just like actually accepting the license basically, like including a copy of the license, keeping it up to date, you know, just complying with all the basic stuff that's in there, right? Complying with this, again, I don't know if I mentioned, but the 1.0A was like 900 words and 1.1 is like 9,000 words. But where was I? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there, those numbers. But what 1.0, it allows you to have that license, and you would have like a warning before termination and anything like that. With 1.1, your agreement can be terminated for any reason, so long as you are given a 30-day notice. However, Wizards of the Coast has a non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, sub-licensable, royalty-free license to use any content that you as the licensee make. And the words there, perpetual, irrevocable, I don't really have lawyer brain, I will admit, but they do apply like after termination on their end. So if you make something, and this is like, I don't want to get too much into fear mongering or anything like that, but this is something that people are worried about. This is why I want to say this, because I want to explain what people are concerned about here. If you make, under worst case scenario, you make something, for some reason or whatever, WotC decides that you no longer get to use the 1.1 license because they can do that for any reason whatsoever, they still essentially have license to your content to use in any way worldwide, royalty free.
Yeah, which is like wild to me because they can just steal your shit if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, which is like, I don't know. I know that like, that's crazy. That this is gonna like fuck so many people up. Like, just to like make their company more profitable slightly, in my opinion. By the way.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but I know someone on Twitter did the math of like, I think it was mostly Kickstarters that had been successful to a point that they would pay this fee, and it was like a drop in the bucket compared to even the profit that, or the revenue rather, that WotC itself brought in, despite it being, or D&D brought in, despite it being a fraction of what WotC brought in.
Yeah, and whoa, man, it's crazy. I really think, well, okay, so I know that they want to. This is less about revenue and more about market share, right? This will like squeeze down everybody that isn't D&D, because like anybody who's like anywhere close into the, like, if D&D is number 1, they're hitting number 2 to 10, right? Of like,
yeah, well, anyone who uses the OGL basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Big, you know, the people who actually make a lot of content and is successful, right? So they're just kind of they're going to squeeze them so they have less revenue to make the things that they're making. So then D&D can take that revenue and just basically, I'm going to start like just copy them, right? Like whatever they're doing or was working, they could just use it and do it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's something they could do.
Yeah, and they should. I don't know about you, but I'm like, or listeners, like, that's, I don't know, it's not good, right? That doesn't sound good to anybody.
Especially, you know, when oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Especially, well, because this is a bit of a speculation thing on my part, but looking back on what we were talking about before, how they want more people onto they're making their own virtual tabletop, right? They want to monetize it in like either a season's pass or microtransaction or whatever they decide to do, but they need content for it, right? If they allow themselves access to this content, if they have the right to use it, if they have the perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide right to use it, royalty-free, they can use it for their virtual tabletops. I don't know that they will. I don't want to specifically say, hey, this is what they're going to do. But I look at the options they have, and if I have to consider, again, worst case scenario, if they're able to take content from someone that makes something, shut them out after 30 days, they can still use that for their virtual tabletops that they want to get people on.
Yeah. That's wild, man.
And again, like, I don't want to say that's what's going to happen, but I just want to say that's what people are worried about. That's what I think might be the worst case scenario. I don't want to confirm that for sure. I'm going to put the article out there so people can go read it. Like, I don't want to be the one who says the sky is falling down, but I do want to look up and say, hey, who's that person that's just tilting over our sky?
Yeah. who's menacing our sky?
What's going on up there?
Yeah, that dude wasn't there before. No, I think that the magic document of the the OGL has been one of the best things that ever happened to this hobby.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that corporates be corporate now is very good. And I don't know. I know, for my opinion, even if like there's gonna be like a lesser version of this document coming out, I think the fact that they're asking for any amount of revenue instead of just, I don't know, making a better product so they could get more market share, like, I think that's wild. You know.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just do better, right? And as a consumer, I don't think I'm gonna support them in any way. Like, I don't think I'm gonna watch the D&D movie, like any other third-party crap that they produce, like. Or not third party, but like, you know, not game product that I'm already not using. I'm just not gonna engage with.
And that's entirely fair. Like,
yeah,
like, just based on what I'm seeing here, based on, again, worst case scenario, that is, I don't know, because this document, the new OGL was supposed to come out on the 13th of January, which, when we're recording this episode and when it comes out, I'm sure some stuff is going to change in between then. So if it does, I'll try to leave some information below the video. But if what comes out is just this, then like I can see why, people would be very concerned. There was also, which I hadn't mentioned yet, because like I had said before, the OGL is meant to apply to printed media and static electronic files, so like putting out like a book or something. It's not meant to apply to like videos or like virtual stuff, like virtual tabletop stuff or campaigns.
Right.
It wasn't meant to apply to like novels, apps, graphic novels, music, songs, dances. Like that stuff would have to fall under basically the fan content policy unless you make a separate agreement with them. Like obviously like an actual like a video game publisher or someone would have a separate agreement with WotC if they want to make an official D&D video game. But if you can't make and sell virtual tabletop content, basically. It has to fall under the fan content policy, which requires that it be free. It has to clearly be unofficial and not harmful and things like that. It has to follow certain terms of use and code of conduct. But fan content has to be free. So you can't put your virtual stuff behind a paywall if you make it for D&D. You could put it somewhere that people can get it for free and then they can donate money to you. That would fall under like a non-commercial license. Again, if I'm understanding this correctly, but you can't have people specifically pay for virtual tabletop stuff that's compatible with D&D.
Yeah, I think that people should just not play D&D and just play Lancer. Half the book is free, and there's lots of cool third-party content as well as expansion books and stuff like that. And forget about Fantasyland. Nobody needs Fantasyland when you got giant robots anyway. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, you're not incorrect. Yeah, that's sort of what people are worried about. They're worried they might lose the rights to their work. People who, like publishers who make certain amounts, there's concern that they might lose, part of their revenue, and that's going to impact their business and how they're able to pay people.
Yeah.
There might be some ways to. Oh yeah.
Everyone's gonna just work for WotC. Is that what they want?
I mean, it's what they
want. Be a monopoly. I love corpos. They're the best.
Like there might be some way to skirt around this sort of thing. Like for Pathfinder, changing the names of things, but then it's a debate of like how, because you have to consider how similar something is to be aware of like how much of a like copy or whatever it is, right? Because if Pathfinder like they drop the OGL, they change the names of some things, is it still too similar to D&D? Because like WotC can't copyright the word charisma, but what about how it's used in a game? Like if you use it to like either like deceive or persuade someone, is that too similar to what they do in D&D? Would that still fall under what should be the SRD, which would still fall under what would be I guess this new open game license? And does that mean then that Paizo still has to pay 25% of their revenue over $750,000 and leaves them with less to pay like their writers and artists and whatever else?
Well, that's definitely for the lawyers, right? Like I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
is having meeting with their lawyers and being like, what is this? How do we not pay them the money?
But like compare Paizo money, like how much they have for lawyers to how much Big Daddy Hasbro has for lawyers, right?
Yeah, good old Big Daddy Hasbro.
Because I love Paizo, love them to death. I don't think they made $6.8 billion in 2021.
No, yeah, for sure. And I still think that, I mean, there is. Man, I was like thinking like this will like obviously be settled in the courts and figured out, right? And the idea of changing all of this stuff in Pathfinder to be like their own thing, but your example with the charisma thing, it's like they can't own the meaning of charisma and how people use charisma.
Exactly.
Then,
so that's why it's a
right?
Yeah, like that's why it's a debate. Because I was just watching some discussion with a lawyer on this, and one of the things they had mentioned is that, like, they had compared it to, like, a novel. Like, you can't copy the concept of there's a problem and a protagonist solves it. Like, that's too vague.
Yeah.
But if you copy, like the first chapter is the same as some other story, but you just change, like, the setting and character names, but it's all, like, the exact same words, that's too similar. So if you're talking about a game, like, you can't copyright game mechanics, but where is the line where they can say, hey, you're just using our game, you're just reprinting our mechanics, or you're just reprinting, like, what we said in our books.
Right. But here's the thing too, right? The idea of rolling like accuracy or advantage, right, in D&D, and disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
The act of rolling 2 dice and taking the highest one. Can they own that?
No.
I would not want to live in a world where they can own that.
I don't believe they can own that. From what I understand about this, I just, admittedly, I'm trying to figure out where the line is, and it seems like it's too vague, it's too situational to specifically say. And either way, like, it would be a hassle to rewrite all of Pathfinder to not use anything that's too similar to D&D.
Yeah,
like, that's not going to be
a
free.
Whole new game. Yeah, they have to, like, make a whole new game, which, I mean, yeah, I would buy it because fuck D&D. Like, I would pay double for a Pathfinder game before I even buy one D&D game. Like, actually.
Yeah, I get why people would be frustrated at this point, especially content creators, because, like, I understand why you'd be worried. Like, you might lose access to your the thing that you've made, and while that is worst case scenario, it does say it can be revoked for any reason, as opposed to being revoked because of a breach, like the way 1.0 says, that it can be revoked because of a breach of the agreement. 1.1 says it can be revoked for any reason.
And they can just use whatever you've created on whatever they want, right? Just because of if you are found within breach, you are obviously retroactively, using their OLG, or, like, they can just take that material and just say, screw it, I'm gonna put it on my online platform because I can just do that for free and just take all of the hard work that you put into doing what you're doing, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, this is wild. Man, this is, like, messed up. Makova's messed up, actually, right now, I'm pretty sure. Like,
yeah, it is worrying. I do hope that when the 13th rolls around, none of this is relevant, but I don't know.
That would be the best.
I do have some other stuff here. I have a comment from Russ Morrissey, who is the owner of N-World and Publishing, who contacted Ryan Dancy. This was the person who originally wrote the 1.0a OGL. He did specifically say that Hasbro does not have the power to deauthorize a version of the OGL, and if that had been a power we wanted to reserve for Hasbro, they would have put it in the license. As well as him saying that he was on record numerous times in email and blogs and interviews saying that the license could never be revoked, which is something that's also mentioned in, like, a 2004 FAQ about the OGL 1.0. However, again, 1.1 says that 1.0 is no longer authorized, so I don't know. I don't have the lawyer money to fight Big Daddy Hasbro on that.
And well, I guess we'll just see where everything kind of lands. Scary time.
Yeah, because part of me was like, I feel like WotC brings in a lot of money, don't they? They brought in that $1 billion in 2021, but apparently, this is something I also recently saw. I forget the date of the article. It was just like this month, I think. They canceled a bunch of game projects, like a bunch of video games and some internal and external stuff. I don't know the specifics on that, but, like, if something's costing them revenue, I can see why they might be a little more motivated to go for this direction. I am worried they might do that typical corpo thing of short-term gain at the cost of long-term, loss of confidence in the audience.
Yeah, screw it. Everyone should just go back to playing 3.5 to really fuck them up. That'd be pretty funny. that game's super free. Like, you can find that game on the internet so easy.
You could, but I mean,
Yeah.
like you could as a player, you can do whatever. Basically, you can still do
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
pretty much, but like you can't write something for 3.5. Not if you want
That's
1.0a OGL to apply to it.
Oh shit! I think everyone should just stop playing D&D and just go play Lancer or any
I
other
mean-
tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, heck, go support Pathfinder, man. Go play that game. Go buy their stuff because apparently they're gonna need it. Like,
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm still waiting to hear from like, there's some more popular people in D&D space who are talking on this and saying that they don't want the OGL to be replaced. And I'm glad for that. I'm glad people are making their voices heard and everything like that. So I'm trying to keep an eye on that sort of thing. But yeah, this is not good news.
this is not good news for anybody. Okay. Well, actually, I'm really curious about other people's opinions on this. So yeah, drop a comment below. Like, what do you guys think about it? Or if you have any worries yourself, or if you think everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
So again, like this new OGL, there was supposed to be like a more official announcement on like the 4th or the 6th, and then it was going to be released on the 13th. So if anything changes between now, time of recording on the 8th, and time of release on the Wednesday after that, and the 13th, I'll say something, but if you want to drop a comment about it, maybe there's something I missed. Obviously, like, again, I'm not like a lawyer. I'm just looking at what was written here. And again, these leaks were partially confirmed because someone at Kickstarter said that they did speak to WotC about this 750K and getting that down to 20%. And there were other content creators like, I'm blanking on the name, but I wrote it down. I think it was Nerd Immersion or something like that. Said that they were having a meeting with WotC that was under NDA, and I'm sure there's others that applied to. So there's people who know about it that can't talk about it. And it was partially confirmed by this guy at Kickstarter, who started there like in August or something. So it's at least partially true, which means the rest of it could be true, which is terrible.
Yes. Terrible. Okay. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll just make Lancer content.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's do that, and then Pathfinder content. And well, if there's any game that you guys want to check out that I don't know isn't a part of the OGL, let us know. That would be something cool. We could just use our little platform here to promote other games, so other people cannot support Hasbro and WotC. Even though it's kind of tough because there's a lot of people working at those companies who probably also don't want that to happen, but also they need the money to do projects. So it's kind of just like a lose-lose situation, I think, in general. So
100%. There's definitely people there who are like good people who just want to make fun games for all the players and GMs out there to enjoy, and there's stuff happening over their heads that they have no control over. Like I don't want to direct anything at those people. The people we want to be mad at are not people who you have access to on Twitter.
yeah. All right. So yeah, are we gonna call it here, Calvin, or?
I mean, if you want to, we could talk for a bit about something more lighthearted.
Yeah, let's talk about your week of designing a mega dungeon, your first couple of rooms. Like, how was that?
Dungeon23. And I posted a video about it, the first video that's ever had my my face in a thumbnail, which is very terrifying. But Dungeon23 is something we mentioned in the 2022 retrospective. It's basically building a mega dungeon over the course of 2023. And the way you build it is you make one room each day and then one floor each month. And you don't specifically have to do that. Some people are doing like a city 23 where they make like a part of a city each month, or space 23 where they do like a more planetary scale thing. But I wanted to do the dungeon map. So I'm taking some inspiration from some parts of Outer Worlds, the DLCs specifically, and a lot of Dead Space. And I'm kind of making like an abandoned space station built into an asteroid. and that's going to be the concept for my mega dungeon. And yeah, it's been about a week, and I've been enjoying it so far. It's very low pressure, which is very good, because there's some days where I'll be like, oh, I'll make this set of stairs and they go over here, and there's a ramp over here, and there's a secret door here, and here's a whole octagonal shaped room. And there's some days where it's like, I don't know, it's a rectangle.
You're like, sick, I did it.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. It doesn't require too much overthinking or anything like that. That's what I'm trying to avoid. But I have a decent map so far, and I just want to try to keep up with it as long as I possibly can. And there's other stuff too, like the original post. What was the name of the guy? I think Sean McCoy or something like that. He also had like a list of weekly prompts. So what I wanted to do was mix it up a bit, and I just choose like a random prompt for each week, and then I try to figure out how to integrate that. So the first one was cold, so I put some like ice elementals in the dungeon, but they've been modified by technology.
Ooh.
And I haven't figured out the plot yet. I don't know why they've been modified or what was going on here, but I have a whole year to do that, so I don't want to overload myself like right off the bat and then have nothing for like August.
Yeah, you don't want to put all your eggs, like, just put it all in now, and then you're like, oh, I'm kind of creatively spent, right?
Right.
The whole point is to do it slowly, so you're not like, creative, like you're not fatigued. Like
Exactly.
that, so.
Exactly. It is sort of a Starfinder thing, but I'm not too like specifically tied down to that. But that is what's on my mind, so that's what I've been working on.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I made a video about it for people out there who might want to see it. I was nervous because it was the first time that I put one, myself in a thumbnail, and two, like, part of the screen is like just me as I'm introducing the thing. And usually when I'm on screen, it's like tucked into a corner when I'm streaming or something. So hopefully people enjoy the video, because I was very nervous to put that out.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen the video, go check it out. But I watched part of it. It's pretty good.
Yay.
Only because, like, I'm going to talk to you. So I was just like, yeah, I'll just talk about it.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. Like, I am going to tell you, so.
But yeah. Anything new? Oh, yeah, my stuff. I should probably make a video about if you guys didn't catch the last podcast, I did mention briefly that I am creating my own tabletop RPG, which is not based on the OGL.
It better not be.
I gotta go double check all of the tabletop RPGs out there ever to see if there's any legal complications we're gonna run into the future, but probably not. But yeah, I'm making my own table RPGs. You guys, Calvin can link it down below to like a basically like an alpha file. Right now it's just the combat rules, so it's mostly just all of the classes that you're able to pick, all the stats, all the equipment, and all that kind of stuff, and also the NPC bad guys are there. It's a big chunky document, and there's lots of entries, and I'm pretty proud of it. But if you guys want to go check that out, the link will be below.
So I'll have all that stuff linked below, so you guys can go check out what we're working on in this year. I think we've got a lot of cool stuff going on. I have some other things I'm still working on that haven't been published yet that hopefully we'll see some of before the end of the month. But if you just want to see the map stuff, why don't you if you just want to see the map stuff, be sure to follow Win with Dice on Twitter, because that is where it's going to be ongoing. But I think we're ready to roll into the outro.
Yes.
Speaking of, so as we go into the end of this video, I just wanted to say thanks a ton to our audience, because I just saw, like, not too long ago that we're at 400 subscribers.
Yeah, we did it.
Which is very nice. I didn't think this was going to happen until like halfway through the month, actually. So on the road to 500, because I want to do community posts, I'm going to keep complaining about it until I get it.
Yeah. We should probably stream some Lancer. I think that people, if we stream Lancer, will you guys subscribe to us? That's really that's what I want to know. If so, okay, I'll do it. Like,
I mean, according to our analytics, the answer would be yes.
The answer would be yes. But, you know, I don't get bullied, all right? But anyway, if you reached the end of the podcast, to the outro, and thank you for listening to the whole thing. I really appreciate it. And yes, I will be running Lancer on the channel soon. I actually started working on it, and I realized my notes are actually pretty good. So again, we should probably always make notes. Super secret last tip of the podcast: just make some notes, because even if you're on like a 2-year hiatus, you could just start over. You don't have to start from scratch.
Oh man, once you get Foundry, you're gonna be unstoppable, man.
I know. So excited.
All right. So also, if you're around, be sure to check out our gaming live streams. There's Mass Effect, Skyrim, Gotham Knights. Having a ton of fun with all of those things. Please watch those Gotham Knights videos because they keep getting copyright claims. No, it's fine.
You should just finish that game so you don't have to get copyright claimed.
No, you know what it is? There's like a dance club in the game, and when you go in there, the music that plays in the background is like some copyrightable song.
Oh, really?
So I'm just never gonna see Penguin for the rest of the game. No, it's actually fine. They're not like taking the videos down or anything, so it's probably fine.
Yeah.
It's just really funny. But yeah, that is where we are at. Thanks for listening, and I think that's all I got. Ramon, is there anything else you want to say before we head off?
No, that's it, man.
All right, well, for all of our officially licensed GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.